Welcome, everybody, to Strangest Species Season 2, Episode 27. I am here, but I'm your host, Mike Davis, here with a special co-host again this week, probably our biggest fan of the show. Nobody listens to more episodes than this guy, the one and only Ethney and I's oldest son, Lincoln Davis. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
We're watching the Simpsons football, Bengals versus Cowboys.
That is what we were doing prior to this. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
It's funny. When they run super fast, they have like fire behind them.
They do. And they keep putting in normal Simpson characters as the football players. And so then they score touchdowns. I don't know who actually scores the touchdowns until I have to go look it up on ESPN. So it's been a little confusing, but it's quite fascinating to watch. It's like literally watching a Simpsons cartoon, but in real time of a real NFL game, which is fascinating. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. We went to Universal Studio earlier this year, and you got to go to Simpson Land, I guess is what we'll call it.
Yeah, it was cool because it was like a car, but it wasn't actually on a track. It was just like rocking up and down.
You talking about Krusty's Ride?
Yeah. And you went like up all the way into space, and then you dropped down.
Yeah, I most definitely could not ride it because I get too motion sick. But I stood in line with you guys.
True. And we saw Krusty. It was funny.
Yeah, because what's the premise of that? Isn't it the premise like Sideshow Bob is trying to kill you or something?
Yeah.
But he didn't get you, obviously.
No.
That's too bad. I mean, it's great, but it would have been, we could have done an episode on you had you been murdered by Sideshow Bob in the game.
That would have been interesting.
Or in real life in a ride, I guess. So, well, cool. That is what we've been up to tonight. I'm here with all the kiddos. Ethney is gone. She is preoccupied tonight, and we had to record, and I don't think she's going to be home till really, really late. And just with Christmas season being what it is, there's just so much going on right now. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll grab Lincoln. We'll go record, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, so here's the question that I always ask your mom, and you know this because you always listen to the podcast. But what do you think we're going to talk about today?
I was listening to another podcast today.
Not ours, though, right?
No, it was the one that you told me about. It's called Mysterious Universe. And it's one with a cave and a bunch of crystals and aliens and stuff. So it's going to be about a cave.
A cave? We don't have a cave in this one. I feel like most Mysterious Universe episodes end up talking about aliens.
Yeah.
Maybe not most, but like half of them.
True.
That is true. So we don't have a cave today, but we do have a beach. And there could be a cave on a beach, but not specifically any caves in this episode. So we're going to go way back in time, Lincoln, okay?
How far?
To 1863.
Okay.
It's a long time ago. And we're going to go up to the other half of, I don't know how to say this, your other nationality.
Canada.
We are going to Canada. And we are going to Nova Scotia. Do you know where Nova Scotia is?
Yes.
It's on the other side of Canada, far away from us. So in 1863, there were a couple fishermen. A nice, beautiful morning. They went out to start their day, and they came across something quite unusual. What do you think they came across?
A dead mermaid.
A dead mermaid would be good. A live mermaid would be even better. Knowing our podcast, that's a really good guess. It was not a dead mermaid. It was a living man. But he was in quite a precarious state. So they found this man lying on the beach. He was totally alone. He was suffering from cold and exposure. So obviously he'd been out there, at least all night. Within arm's reach was a little tin of biscuits and a loaf of bread and a jug of water. So he had things to survive. But the biggest thing and the weirdest thing that stood out to these fishermen was this man was missing both legs from the knee down. They had been cut off.
Was it like clean or?
It was clean, and it was very fresh. So they had been properly bandaged, and you could tell that it was done by a skilled surgeon.
So is he alive still?
He's still alive.
Okay.
So this man, if they find him alive, he's cold, he's got food, he's got water, and very recently, both of his legs have been cut off by a doctor, it seems, and he's just out there on the beach. If that was you, what do you do, Lincoln? You're the one who finds this guy out there on the beach.
Talk to him?
Yeah. What would you say to him?
Well, I'd see if he was awake first.
Yeah.
And then say, hello, do you need any help?
So that's what they did, essentially. They tried talking to him, but he wouldn't answer them. He wouldn't say much of anything. And so, they're trying to figure out, well, where in the world did this guy come from?
Could they tell he was awake? Could they tell,
Yes. So he was conscious, but it's just not every day that you wake up, especially in a small town like this, and you find random people just lying around with no legs. So they were confused. So they were actually very, very nice, and they brought him back to town, and they took him to the family or the home of the Albright family who lived in a nearby village of Digby Neck. Isn't that a cool village name?
Sounds like a pirate where he hid his treasure.
Digby Neck. Maybe there is some pirate treasure there. Who knows? But it does sound like that. So they got him all wrapped up in blankets. They gave him a bunch of hot drinks. And they were just trying to, help him out, help him get not cold, kind of bring him back. But it became apparent very soon, and he was a fairly young man, maybe in his 20s. But it became very apparent that he did not understand what they were saying.
Like the language?
Mm-hmm. He didn't speak the same language as them. And, so they tried speaking English to him, and that didn't work. So up there in those parts of Canada, they speak a lot of French. So they went and got someone who speaks French. Still couldn't get him to say anything. They tried Latin. They tried Italian. They tried Spanish. And nothing. Didn't speak any of those languages. The only thing he did was growl.
Like a dog?
Yeah. If you got too close to him, he'd growl at you.
Did he look like what race he was? What he would speak? Or did he look like American or Canadian?
Yeah, that's a good question. So he actually looked kind of Mediterranean. It's like Italian or Greek or something like that.
Okay.
But it wasn't, the weird thing was, so it's one thing not to be able to communicate with somebody, but the difference also was he wasn't talking at all. You know what I'm saying? If you speak Italian and I speak German, maybe we can't communicate with each other, but we can both say things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't saying anything. He was just growling. Yeah. They would talk to him and he would growl back. You got it. So they were very, very confused. Where in the world does this guy come from? He just shows up. They were all around. They're fishermen by trade, so they're at the beach all the time. He wasn't there the day before. Now all of a sudden there's this guy there, and he doesn't speak any language that we know of. And not only does he not speak any of these languages, he doesn't seem to speak at all. And he growls at us.
Do you think if he spoke, they'd be able to figure out what language he spoke?
I think so. Besides growling, he did seem to enjoy the presence of children, though. He wouldn't growl at kids. So that's nice.
Would he talk at them or just
He didn't. No, he wouldn't say anything. So everyone was really confused. Are you confused right now?
Somewhat.
What do you think's going on? You got any hypotheses?
A language they haven't discovered since it's 2,000 years ago-ish.
Well, it's about 200 years ago.
Oh, 200 years ago.
Yeah. So, but even if he had a language that had never been discovered, where would it have come from? Like, how did he get there? So sure, you could have, like, let's say he's from an island on the other side of the world where there's a language that no one speaks except for on that island. But how did he show up on Nova Scotia one morning?
He was on a boat, and then he fell off, and the waves brought him to shore, and then a surgeon found him, and he had, like, super bad legs, so they cut him off, and then he left so he wouldn't get in trouble. And left him there with supplies to live.
Hey, that sounds about as good a hypothesis as most of your mom's. So that's great. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So everyone's really confused. Now, he did try to, at one point, make one sound. No one could understand what he was saying, but the word that he was trying to say kind of sounded like the name, Jerome. Like whatever he was saying kind of sounded like Jerome. So everyone decided they were just going to call him Jerome. So that was what his name was. What do you do with Jerome? If you're these people in this town of Digby Neck, and all of a sudden this guy's showing up, what do you do with him?
Give him to a doctor.
Okay, but these are small little fishing villages. Did you just go put him back on the beach?
No.
No, okay. Do you, I don't know what you do. Where'd you put him, right?
Are there any doctors in the town?
There must, I would assume there's at least a doctor in neighboring villages and stuff.
Because they should try to go and find the doctor that, like, cut off his
Right,
leg.
because obviously there's someone not too far away that performed surgery on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
He was on the ship, and then they threw him off because they didn't like him, and then he cut his legs off as punishment.
That's true, too. He could have had his legs chopped off on a ship and then dropped off. In that case, you're not going to find the surgeon very easily.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody did it. So the people in the town had a bit of a predicament. They had to figure out what they're going to do with Jerome. And obviously everyone was constantly talking and trying to figure out, like, where did this guy come from? This is like the gossip of all gossips in this little town. They had a couple hypotheses that are kind of similar to yours. Some people thought that he was a sailor who had attempted a mutiny. Do you know what a mutiny is?
Where they throw the captain.
Yeah, where they try to overthrow the captain.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought maybe he was a mutineer that had failed in his attempt. And so as punishment, they chopped off his legs and threw him overboard. So that's one theory. Other people, though, realized that his hands were very soft.
Like they were wet, or like...
That's a good thought. No, not like they were wet, but... So let's say you were a farmer. What kind of hands do you expect a farmer would have?
Rough hands.
And why would they be rough?
Because he has to, like, cut crops, and he might cut himself a lot, and he has to have...
Yeah, because he's using them, right. And they get tough with time, right? What if you met someone who was a nature photographer?
They need light hands to hold the butterflies.
Yeah.
Because they like butter.
Like their hands are probably softer, right? Or what if you had someone who was a cupcake baker?
Their hands would probably smell good.
Their hands, but they definitely would smell yummy. But probably softer than a farmer's, right?
Yeah.
And so they notice, well, his hands are very soft. They're not callous. They're not dirty. They don't look like a pirate or a sailor or someone who's worked a lot of hard labor in their lives. So then they thought, well, maybe he is the heir to a big fortune and somebody is trying to get rid of him so that they can have the money.
Sounds like a lot of movies.
Does sound like a lot of movies. But regardless of how many hypotheses they came up with, at that point, they couldn't figure out who he was or where he'd come from. They just knew he was there and he didn't speak. And he was kind of grumpy. And he was missing legs. Which makes sense. I'd probably be grumpy if I was missing my legs too. Fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, he stays with this family for a couple weeks. After that, Jerome is passed on to another family, and then he spends a couple weeks there. And then they pass him off to another family, and he spends a couple weeks there. And it just kind of becomes this thing where everyone in the village takes Jerome for a couple weeks.
Like a class pet.
That's exactly what I thought. It's like Leo. Have you ever had a class pet? I don't remember you ever bringing a class pet home.
We had a fake one in 3rd grade. It was a little blue llama stuffed animal.
Did you bring it home?
I had it like twice. And it had a little cardboard
That was a long time
house.
ago, but I don't remember the blue llama.
It was in Miss Hernandez's class.
Gotcha. That makes sense. She likes llamas. I'm trying to think back. When I was in kindergarten, we had a pet tarantula in our class.
Did you ever take it home?
No, we didn't get to take the tarantula home. He stayed at the home or at the school. But we did have like this teddy bear that would go home with students each week when you were like student of the week or whatever. And I definitely remember taking the teddy bear home.
Does that mean you were a good student because you got student of the week?
No, I think it just meant that it was my week to take it home. I don't think it was anything special I did.
Okay.
Did you know that I went to kindergarten for three years, 3 times?
Did you get held back?
Yes.
So if you went to school, were you behind by... Well, were you older than everybody? Because if you got held back 2 years, then when you move up to the next grade, you'd be older than everybody.
You would think that, right? So I started school in Canada where I started extra early. And they do 2 years. I was in Ontario. Well, at least when I was there, they did. And then when I went back to the States, they made me repeat a year. So I had to do kindergarten again.
So were you older or younger?
I was actually, because I started early, I actually was in the right. I would have graduated early had I not done it again. So I actually graduated in the right year, age-wise. But I did a lot of kindergarten.
Okay. Were you like a student because you knew everything?
Best finger painter ever. But I was probably pretty bored.
The best Mother's Day present, the flowers at her fingers.
Yes. I'm sure my mom got so many Mother's Day presents and Christmas presents for me in kindergarten. I was telling your mom the story the other day. I don't have a lot of memories of kindergarten in Canada because I was little, but I remember someone brought in Jello jigglers. And
What are those?
You know, like the shaped Jello things? If you like made Jello and you made like a cookie cutter and cut out different shapes.
Yeah.
So someone brought in a big tray of those, and I went to grab, I don't know what color it was, but like a blue one or a red one or whatever, and I accidentally touched a yellow one while trying to grab the one I wanted, and my teacher made me take the yellow one because I touched it, and it was so sad because yellow Jello is disgusting.
What flavor? Is it lemon?
I don't know.
If it was pineapple, that'd be good.
Yeah, it was. Pineapple would be good, but it wasn't. This is back in the day. This was definitely lemon. That's one of my few memories of school in Canada. Bad Jello Jiggler experience. So, so they passed him around, and he was kind of like a class pet. But this was a way for the village to take care of him without any one family having to do all the work, which is actually a really cool idea. It's you know, we talk on this podcast a lot about just humanity in general and people and the way society works and people work and why we do the things we do. And it's really fascinating that they kind of came up with this natural solution. Obviously, they couldn't just get rid of him. But it was too much of a burden for any one family to have to take care of him, so they kind of just passed him along. Now, the weird thing is, Jerome still never spoke. And he didn't do anything.
Does he like have a pact that he can't speak until he does something?
I don't know. So that some other people think like, well, maybe, and I don't know if they knew this back then, but now in retrospect, some people think maybe he had fallen into like icy water and maybe had like brain damage. And that's why he couldn't remember his name or anything about him or couldn't speak. Like his brain wasn't working all the way.
But then why would they have to chop his legs off?
Well, maybe they were frost bitten. Yeah. We'll get there. So, but that's pretty cool. They passed him around, right? Let everyone take it. Like, would you like to have a Jerome in our house for a couple weeks?
Yes.
Yes. What would you do with Jerome? Would you play Madden with him?
No.
No.
I would shoot him with Nerf guns.
Oh, well. That's kind of mean, but yeah, okay.
Maybe I could get him to talk like, stop it.
There you go. So you want to like bother him enough that he starts talking.
Yeah.
Well, you would be the one to do it. You could cure him.
I could just be like, talk, talk, talk. For like 5 hours straight.
You definitely could do that. I'm sure he would love it.
Maybe he'd talk.
Yeah. He finally just turns to you and says, okay, look, dude, if you shut up, I'll say something.
Deal.
Oh, Lincoln. So, that's what they did. They passed him around. And he lived that way for a while. But then after a little bit, this neighborhood or this community of Digby Neck in Nova Scotia, they were mostly Baptists.
Like they baptize people?
Well, it's a form of Christianity, being Baptist. And so they, based on his clothes or his appearance and stuff, they thought, well, he was probably Catholic. He's probably not Baptist. So maybe we should put him with a Catholic family. So then they moved him to another town nearby, a town of Medigan. So they went from Digby Neck to Medigan. They have much cooler names than we do for their villages.
Sounds like a world in our VR.
Yeah, I've never actually used our VR.
There's a place called Verizon World, and you can just like play a bunch of games, and it sounds like that's what it would be called.
There you go. I forgot we even have a VR.
I was going to play it today, but it's dead.
Oh, there you go. Did you plug it in?
No.
Of course not. That would make too much sense. I've never used it. So they moved to the home of Jean Nicolas. Now, by this point, Jerome had kind of become a big enough sensation that the government of Nova Scotia had actually voted to give him a stipend of $2 a week.
Is that like an allowance?
Yeah. So the government just sent him like, here's $2 a week to live on. Now, obviously, nowadays, $2 isn't much. But back then, it was probably a lot more. So he still can't speak. He's still not doing anything. But now the government's paying him. And he's living with this different family. Now, he lives with that family for 7 years. Now, again, during this time, he doesn't work. He doesn't talk. He doesn't help out with anything. He's literally just there.
If he's playing at the silent game, he is the all-time winner.
Truth. He's very good at the silent game. And so he stays there for 7 years. But Juliet Nicola, the wife of the couple that he's living with, dies. And so her husband, Jean, moves back to Europe. So now Jerome's out of a place to stay. So he moves in with another family in another town nearby there. But these people decide, you know what? Jerome's kind of a famous guy. Even though he doesn't do anything at all, everyone knows about him. So we should start charging people to come and see him, and then we can make money off of him. What do you think about that?
It's a good idea.
Yeah?
It's money, but you're not doing anything bad to him.
No, you're not doing anything bad to him. You're just, well, he's kind of like a zoo animal now, though, right?
It's a petting zoo. Just like you can touch him for $5.
Or just look at him for like $2?
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
Or you can smell him for $1.
Wow. Smelling him is the cheapest option, huh?
Yeah, he probably smells bad.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he smells bad. He's not doing a whole lot.
But then in theory, you could look at him for $2.
Yeah, so you maybe should look at him for $1, smell him for $2, pet him for $5.
That's a good deal.
Is that a good deal?
Yeah.
Okay. If you say so. You're the shrewd businessman over here. So they decide that they're going to start charging admission for people to come and see him. And this arrangement goes on for guess how long?
15 years.
Close. 40 years.
That's not close.
No, it's not. That was sarcasm.
How old would he be? Like 60? Because if he was 20-ish.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly how old he is, but yeah, probably in his mid-60s, late 60s.
He was 7 years with that family. He probably was like a year with all the other, or like 2 years. So he's probably like 70.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't talked?
Still hasn't spoken.
It's impressive.
It is impressive. You should try it.
I'd lose.
You would lose. How long can you go without talking?
-5 minutes.
-5 minutes. That sounds about right. Could you go 10 minutes?
If there was a prize, I could do 10 minutes.
10 minutes for a pencil with no eraser.
Deal.
Okay. Well, after we're done, we'll try it.
Okay.
I don't think it would be very good for you to do it right now. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were going to start and not talk. You were just looking at me. So he goes on for, like I said, living there for 40 years, where people come and they pay an admission to see him. Now he's there for 40 years until his death on April 15th, 1912. So he ends up living in Nova Scotia for about 50 years, like you said.
Wait, 1912?
Mm-hmm.
What year did we get there?
1863. You doing math over there?
I'm trying to think of how old he is.
Well, but we don't know how old he is when he started.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's say he was 25. So 63, 73, 83, 93, 03. There's a 49 years. Those he was 25, I'd put him at like 74 years old.
But they used to die at like 70.
Yeah.
Back in there. Well, like, actually a lot earlier.
Probably a lot earlier. So he actually, was fairly old for the time when he passed away. And during that whole time, those 49 years, he never really spoke to anybody.
Except Jerome.
He also never read. And he never wrote anything. This guy's like the opposite of your mom. Like, this guy would drive her insane.
Like, could he walk? Or did he just sit down and...
He just kind of sat. Right? Maybe he had like a little wheelchair of some sort. But he had no legs, right?
Yeah. Well, he had half of his legs, but...
Well, not the half you need for walking, yeah. So, he lived a very, very, very idle life. And he did not do much of anything. Can you imagine going your whole life, well, most of your life, not being able to walk, not speaking, not reading, not writing? Like, what would you do all day?
Well, could he read and write? He just chose not to.
I assume maybe he could prior to whatever caused him to show up on the beach. But no, if he didn't speak any of the languages there, then it made it really challenging, to be able to write or read. But he never seemed to know another language either. Like not that he only didn't speak that language, but he also didn't write in that language. Because sometimes when you have traumatic head injuries, you'll find that people will lose the ability to speak sometimes after having a stroke.
What's that called? Isn't that called being like...
A mute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one word or is it mute? Like you are...
No, two words. A mute, yeah.
Okay.
So they lose their ability to speak, but they can still write things. So I couldn't tell you, I couldn't say, hey, what time is it? But I could write, what time is it? My brain is still making that connection. I just can't get it to make my lips to do it. But Jerome didn't seem to have the ability to do either. He just kind of was around.
So he's just like a pile of bones and stuff just sitting there?
He's just a pile of man. Just hanging out. Yeah, I guess I don't know what you're doing all day. That's what fascinates me about it. Like a whole life. Like I can't go a day without filling my life of a million things to do.
Too bad they didn't have Legos.
Yeah.
Or else there'd be slots to do.
He could have been a Lego master. Like
on
you.
the TV show.
Yeah. Well, there's no TV either, though. So people, like I said, would pay to come and visit him, but when they would come, he would not speak to them, obviously. Most of the time, he wouldn't even look at them. He would just look down at the floor, which doesn't seem like a very good value on your dollar if you're going to go pay to see him. But then again, when we go like the zoo, half the time the animals aren't even around, right?
But that was when there was that one time when the lion woke up and roared at all of us.
That was cool. Do you remember the one time you tried to get eaten by a cheetah?
I didn't try. That was the same zoo, and he was just chasing me because I was running, and he thought I was prey, and he just kept stalking me and chasing me,
That was the San Diego Zoo.
and they took him on walks like around the public.
Yeah, it was funny. So if you've ever been to the San Diego Zoo, there's this short little street that's like a loop that has, I think it has the rhinos and the giraffes. Anyways, as you come around the far side, excuse me, there's this big enclosure of cheetahs. And there's big signs that say, don't run near the cheetahs.
But I didn't see those.
Lincoln doesn't see a lot of signs. And so Ethney and I were up in front and walking by, and all the kids were still looking at the giraffes. So they were a little ways behind us. And then Lincoln comes up and he's trying to catch up to us. And this cheetah is sitting behind these rocks, just eyeing Lincoln. And he had did you have like a bright orange shirt on or something?
It had a lion on it, and it was bright orange, and
yeah, it was bright orange.
Yeah.
So you can see Ethney and I are watching this cheetah watch Lincoln coming up. And he comes up by the fence, and that cheetah just, boom, darted right after him. And if there was not a wall between Lincoln and this cheetah, he would have been cheetah food.
I just think how bad it hurts to get scratched by the cats. Because today I was holding our cat Emoji, and she scratched me on the neck, and it hurt. So I feel like that would hurt getting scratched by one 10 times their size.
I would definitely agree and not want to try it. But then the zoo worker came out and they're like, oh yeah, you can't run because they literally will think you're prey. But then she starts telling us that this cheetah in particular is one of their ambassador animals, and they take her out on walks around the zoo. And I'm like, this sounds like a really, really bad idea because it tried to just eat Lincoln, and then you take it on a leash around.
Good thing there was a fence.
Good thing there was a fence. Exactly. So I don't think Jerome ever tried to chase down and eat anybody that came to see him, luckily.
That's a good thing.
Probably not in his repertoire of abilities. But it is kind of sad because I don't think he had any interest in people coming and gawking at him either.
What does gawking mean?
Like staring at him.
Oh, okay.
They treated him kind of like a sideshow, which is unfortunate. And obviously he didn't want the attention because when people would come, he would just look at the floor and just kind of be there and bear it while it was going on and then leave. Sometimes people would ask him questions, and he would make a peculiar grumbling noise to show his annoyance that he did not appreciate being asked questions, but again, never said anything. He was never ever seen to write anything with a pen or pencil, and he was never seen making any attempt to look at a book or read anything of any kind his whole life, which is just weird. He refused to look at pictures as well, which is interesting to me, that he wouldn't look at photos. I don't know what that means, but he wouldn't do it.
So if they had a picture in their house, he would just be he couldn't walk, but whenever he looked at it, he would just be
yeah,
look down.
Yeah, or if you tried to show him a picture, I guess he would just look away.
Any picture?
I guess so.
Let's say if they had phones and you showed him, does that count as a picture, or does it have to be framed picture?
Well, I'm not sure because they definitely didn't have phones back then, so that wasn't a thing that he was ever presented with. So I can't say, but any kind of framed picture, yeah, he did not want to see it. And like we said, he led an entirely idle life of doing absolutely nothing. Would you like a whole life of absolutely nothing, Lincoln?
No.
No. Nor would I. That sounds terrible. I like doing nothing after I've done a whole lot of something, and then it feels good. What if I do nothing just for the sake of doing nothing? Then that really bothers me. So.
Emphasis on the word no to doing anything, or to doing nothing. Because that would suck.
It would. It'd be super lame. So, they did later on come up with a theory as to who Jerome was. Now, if your mom was here doing this podcast with me, this whole story would drive her absolutely bonkers that she doesn't know the answer to it.
Because she doesn't like Lost.
She does not like Lost, and she does not like when I give her stories that don't have nice, tight endings to them. So, this is what people think what happened to Jerome. Are you ready? They believe Jerome was an Italian who was employed by a lumber operator in the Chipman district of New Brunswick. Now, New Brunswick is another part of Canada across the Bay of Fundy. Maybe Fundy.
But they think he's Italian?
Yeah. So thinking he was working over there, working some lumber. Now, in 1859, 4 years before the mysterious man, Jerome showed up on the beach of Sandy Cove. In the middle of winter, this Italian man was walking through the woods. I think maybe in the winter he got lost. And he fell between some logs into a pond.
Like wall lumberjacking?
I don't know if he was maybe coming back from chopping down stuff, maybe while working.
Were they logs that he chopped down or like his company chopped down?
I don't know if they're his company or not. I presume they were logs that had fallen, that were probably covered in snow. So he probably thought he was safe walking on them and then maybe slipped right between them into the freezing cold pond.
But how do they put them on top of water if it's not frozen?
Well, it could be not like on a huge pond. It could just be like a slough. Like maybe the water is just like a foot or two deep. But then you would think it would freeze. I don't know. You ever fallen into really cold water? Or jumped into really cold water like in the wintertime?
Not on accident.
Have you ever done a polar plunge?
Yeah.
In winter? I know this summer you did it in the morning. You get up early when we were at...
Yeah, but that water was like warm. Like it wasn't cold. It was like it was just warm. But Willow Bay's usually cold.
It's always freezing cold.
Until you're used to it.
Right. I mean, it's nice if it's 100 degrees outside.
I don't think I've ever gotten in water while in winter. But we go from the hot tub to the snow. You
guys do like to do that a lot.
And then back to the hot tub.
This is very true. The hot tub's a crucial difference in that story. But it is fun to do.
If it was a cold tub, then it'd be different.
You are correct. The hot tub is your favorite place in our house.
True. I listen to all the podcasts in it.
You do, like every day. It's great. I love it. So, anyway, however this worked out, they think he fell through into this water. Okay. They think that he got out, found shelter in a nearby mill where he slept. The next morning, he wakes up, and his legs are so frozen that they are not savable, and a surgeon has to cut them off.
And how do they know all this? Do they have a research team that was trying to figure out where he came from?
Yeah.
How do they figure this out?
Well, so they find this story out of this other town because New Brunswick's a different province than Nova Scotia. So it's like a different state. Mm-hmm. So they find this story over there of this guy 4 years before Jerome shows up of this happened to this guy. And the town, same kind of thing. So, let's go back a step. His legs are frozen. Surgeon comes, cuts him off.
So how did he get on the beach in Nova Scotia?
So what the theory is that the people of Chipman, where he was, paid a passing ship to take him with them so that they didn't have to deal with him. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, your legs are chopped off. I see a boat coming. I say, hey, Captain, I'll pay $100 to take Lincoln with you without his legs, just because we don't know what to do with him.
That's a lot of money back in the day.
Well, I made that up, but, some form of money.
Mm-hmm.
So the captain says, yeah, sure, I'll take him. Takes the money, sails across the bay, drops him off on some random beach. But he doesn't want to be like a total jerk, so he leaves him some food and water. and then gets on wherever he's got to go. So they think that's probably where he came from. Now, again, maybe he had an accident with the water and can't remember who he is or what his name or anything like that. Maybe that's why the people of Chipman didn't want to deal with him. They were just like, get out of here. But I think that theory makes as much sense, if not more sense, than the mutineering pirate or the heir of a fortune that got. Because if he was the heir of a fortune or a pirate, like, why chop your legs off? And if you're going to chop your legs off, why do it nicely and cleanly? I feel like pirates would chop your legs off in a more brutal fashion.
Or they could just drop a cannonball on it and just like crunch it off.
That would be another way a pirate can do it, yes. Lincoln is reenacting a dropping of a cannonball right now, which is not great for podcasting because no one can see you, but...
I'm holding a super heavy ball and then I'm dropping it on my leg and it's going to go like...
There we go. Now you all have it. So, what do you think about Jerome, Lincoln?
That sounds like a reasonable answer.
What do you think about his life?
Sounds like very boring.
Does sound so boring. I feel bad for the guy because he probably didn't know, what his... I mean, he probably didn't have any idea what was going on, right? But, I mean, I'm very... It's very promising and nice to see and hear that the community stepped up and took care of him. Even if that meant being paraded as a sideshow of sorts. But if I were Jerome, I would much rather be paraded as a sideshow and have a comfortable life than have no legs and be thrown out to, try to survive on my own and not have to deal with people.
I would have at least talked or read a book or looked at pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have read a book if I could. Again, I don't think he could. I think physically he was not able to.
But then why wouldn't you look at pictures?
That's true. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he was just a jerk who didn't want to talk to anybody.
Or he didn't like the artist of the pictures.
That could be too. This is not my style. So, any last thoughts, Lincoln, on Jerome?
His life is like porridge because it's boring.
All right. Very astute observation and ending. His life was like porridge because it was boring. I'm taking it you don't like porridge.
It's just oatmeal, but not as good.
I don't like oatmeal even, so. I like steel cutouts, but not normal oatmeal, really. So, all right, everybody. Ethney will be back next week. We'll get one more episode in before Christmas. And like I said, then we'll be off for a little bit. And we will go from there and see what happens. Any last words, Lincoln, before we go?
Have a great day. Or night, I guess.
That's right. Wherever you are, have a wonderful one. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.